I was thinking next we could have a go at doing is how about we have a go at doing some gear changes.
Okay.
Because we've got this nice long stretch of road here to have a play with doing some of the gear changes.
Okay.
We're firstly going to do what's called a dry run of doing the gear change, basically changing gears while we're stationary, just to kind of make sure the process makes sense in theory.
Okay.
Because when you're moving, it happens kind of reasonably quickly, the sort of the steps almost.
Okay.
So because of that, can you just turn the engine off for me fully with the button here?
I don't need to press any of the pedals.
No, so basically the pedals is just having to press the clutch to start the engine.
To start it, okay.
But to turn it off, it won't need any pedals. Yeah, so we're gonna do some dry runs of the gear change, just so it sort of to see what your understanding is in theory.
Okay.
So if you can just press the clutch fully down for me and move it into gear 1, that's great. And because the engine's off, you can come off the clutch and it won't go anywhere. But you always do it with that bit of caution just to be sure, though.
Okay.
Cool. So I suppose the first thing is, what do you know about gears? What's the reason? Do you know the reason why we have gears or why we change gears? Or
I would like to think I do, but I definitely don't.
have you ridden the bicycle before?
Yes.
What's the reason your bicycle? I assume you have gears on your bicycle.
Yeah.
When might you change up gears on your bicycle?
When you change up gear,
yeah,
it becomes a lot harder, but it's easier to cycle long distances.
And do you normally change up gears when you're going fast or when you're going slower, or?
Generally faster. Yeah.
So it's the same on the car. You change up through your gears as you increase speed.
Okay.
The only difference is there's only, well, in this car there's 6 gears. On the bicycle you might have had 21 gears, depending on what type of, if it's a mountain bike or what have you.
Okay.
Was it 21 gears, one of those ones, or was it? Okay.
I've never been that high.
But yeah, same principle. It's just there's less gears on a car.
Right.
So generally, as a general rule of thumb, you take the gear, add a 0 on, and that's the maximum speed that gear will go for normal driving. You can go outside the boundaries a bit for certain circumstances.
Okay.
So for example, first gear is 0 to 10 miles per hour.
Okay.
Second gear is 10 to 20 miles per hour.
Right.
Third gear is 20 to 30 miles per hour.
Okay.
And so on.
Yeah.
And as you increase your speed, you then go up through those gears.
Right.
Kind of like I said with the bicycle, you change up gears so it's kind of in some ways easier to pedal and less effort. Same in the car, because if you're in first gear doing 30 miles an hour, it's going to basically be using a lot of fuel, making the car work incredibly hard to try and keep at that speed in first gear.
Okay.
So you change up gears basically so the car doesn't have to work as hard and it saves fuel.
No.
And then the process for changing gears, so let's imagine you're in first gear, you're starting to get to 10 miles an hour, so that's when you'd want the next gear. A couple of clues you'll get, you might hear the engine sounding louder to tell you what the next gear. Can you actually also just press this button without pressing the pedals, just press the button to turn on the electrics. You'll also notice when it wants the next gear, the prompt will appear somewhere around here saying the gear number and an up arrow, so it might say 2 and an up arrow.
Okay.
You could also use this Rev Counter, that when it gets about to 2, which you times by 1,000 in RPM, which means revolutions per minute.
Okay.
So when it reaches the 2,000, then that's when you could typically change up the gears.
Okay.
It's like, I don't know if you've played these games like Need for Speed or something, where when you're accelerating the revs go up, and when you change gears they drop back down.
Yeah.
So it's sort of the same thing as that. The only difference is we're not going to go all the way to the red area like you do on Need for Speed if you've done like drag racing sort of things on that. Because that would be basically very good for a fast pull away, but if you're using a hell of a lot of fuel.
Okay.
So it's the engine's revving and we're going above 10 miles an hour, so it wants the next gear. The process is going to be, if you have your foot on the gas pedal for me, imagine you're driving along and have your hands on the wheel, and you can even press the gas a bit, it won't move anything because the engine's off. So you're driving along, you're building your speed, and the process is going to be, if you first just cover your clutch, so you're ready to press the clutch because you'll need the clutch to change gear in a moment.
Okay.
And also have your hands on the gear stick, but don't move it yet. So this is you essentially prepared to change the gear,
Okay.
and now you're going to go off the gas, clutch fully down, and then pressure towards me and down into second,
Okay.
and then clutch gently up, and then gently touching on the gas. And that's a good speed for your clutch coming up there. So when you bring the clutch up with changing gears, it doesn't have to be as slow as when you're pulling away from stationary,
Right.
but it doesn't want to be jumping off. So the speed you do the clutch up there, the speed you brought off the clutch like that,
Yeah.
is perfect. That sort of speed. And then you'd be basically in second gear now, you would.
Okay.
It'd be slightly different process for slowing back down, because if we have to speed up before we change up gears, can you guess what we need to do before we change down gears?
Slow down.
Yeah. So the process would be, if you have your foot back over the gas there, so imagine you're driving along, if you want to slow down for something, you'll be switching your foot to the brake pedal. I'd also cover the clutch. So you have your clutch covered as well, so that's ready to go in a minute. You'll be using your brakes to slow, so you touch the brake to slow. And when the car's slowed enough, you would then, if you also have your hand on the gear stick actually, so once the car's slowed enough, you'd ease off the brake so it doesn't like necessarily fully stop, and you'll go clutch fully down, and then pressure towards me, and up into gear 1. And then you kind of could come back up on the clutch and kind of pivot your foot to the gas. It's a little bit more fiddly changing down, there's more foot movement involved.
Okay.
So you then would do sort of like that.
Okay, that definitely is going to be
So it's a little bit more fun, because you basically need to use the brakes to slow, but once you've slowed, you then want to pivot to the gas, so you can do that sort of thing, you know, like how you did when you moved off.
Yeah.
Of doing the gas and bike, so it is a bit more foot movement involved.
Okay. That's definitely a weird one. So I don't, when I'm coming off the brake, do I give it a little gas when I'm changing down gear?
Ideally,
Okay.
because giving it a little gas will basically make it smoother.
Okay.
If you just use the clutch on its own with no gas when you change down gears, it will work, but you might find it be a bit like
Okay.
every time you change down gears.
Right, okay.
So it's almost like you might say you just want to blip to the gas, if you know what I mean, but I just like touch it really.
Just touch
Not necessarily press it as such and like hold it, just sort of touch it, sort of blip it.
Okay.
When you bring the clutch up, will just make it that bit smoother.
Okay.
But like I said, it's not a disaster if you don't. It just won't be as smooth. It will still work. It just won't be as smooth.
Okay.
So we're going to have a go at doing that. Any questions about that, by the way, in theory?
In theory, no. I think I'll definitely learn more from the practical side of things. Yeah.
I'll give you lots of help with it to start off. I'll
Okay.
give you full guidance of talking you through it.
Yeah.
And we're basically going to have a few goes at basically speeding up and changing up to gear 2, and then slowing back down and changing down to gear 1, because
Okay.
that's the sort of thing you might need to do. For example, if you're driving along, you want to turn into a drive or a side road, you need to be able to speed up, let's say you pulled out the side road and change up gears, and then maybe slow back down and change down a gear before you turn into another road.
Right, okay. Oh, it's definitely going to be fiddly.
So,
already.
where could we put the gear stick before you start the engine? Where would be the best place to have the gears, do you
Back
think?
into neutral.
Cool. So if you now start up the engine,
Down on the clutch.
good, yeah, that's it.
And then press
Then
it
the
again.
button, that's it. So basically with the clutch down, pressing the button will then turn the engine on fully.
Okay.
If the clutch isn't down, the button will only turn on the electrics.
Okay.
It won't turn on the engine. So when you're ready, we'll look to pull away from here. So see if you can talk me through that process for moving away from here.
Okay, so first I'm going to prepare. So I'm going to put a bit of gas on.
Yeah.
I've got that nice low humming noise. Then I'm going to put it into gear 1.
Yeah. So
It's very fiddly. Then I'm going to go off to the biting point. I think it's about there.
good. Yeah.
I'm going to hold it there now.
Good.
Put my hand on the handbrake.
Yeah.
Make my observations. So I'm going to check my mirror, my blind spot. Just make sure I'm ready. And then I'm ready to set off.
Yeah, that's perfect. So when you're happy and it's safe to, release that handbrake.
Okay. Go down on the clutch a bit.
Good. Perfect. And now that clutch release now.
Okay.
Cool. So now I'm going to press the gas a bit harder to build the speed. I know it probably feel like 1,000,000 miles an hour, but it's only 9 miles an hour. Probably does it feel really fast?
It definitely does, yeah.
So we'll do a little bit more gas. Because it's a hill, we need to have slightly more speed before we do a gear change. So a little bit more gas. That's it. And just keep looking nice and far ahead in your lane. A bit more gas to build speed a bit more. That's it. Can you hear the engine noise?
Yeah.
So you're going to cover the clutch, but don't press it yet.
Okay.
Have your hands on the gear stick, but don't move it yet.
Okay.
That's perfect. So now we're going to go off gas and then clutch down, and then moving the gear stick into 2, and then gently easing the clutch up and just touching the gas. That's perfect, and your clutch can be fully off. Cool, and now you're in gear 2.
Oh wow.
And now we're going to do the process for slowing down and changing down gears. So we're just going to use your brakes to gently slow, just brakes on their own, just to gently slow. Cover clutch, but don't press it just yet. A little bit more brake. So touch more brake. You feel that clutch fully down. Ease off the brake, good, and into gear 1. And now see if you can switch your foot to the gas, and then do your biting point. So ease the clutch up to the bite. That's perfect. And now the clutch can come fully off. Cool. And what we're going to do now, if you just cover brake for me and cover clutch, so we're just going to pull up on the left just here.
Okay.
Is there anyone to signal to, do you think?
Nobody at the moment.
Cool, and they're walking away, so they shouldn't be an issue.
Okay.
That's it. And now that clutch pedal, just before you stop, needs to steer a little bit away. Okay? So fully down on the clutch and just gently braking to stop. And just stop just here. Just because we don't want to go across the thing. So then you can secure the car. So cool. So you can blame me for that slightly harsh stop there, because I wanted to make sure you stop before we block this this entrance into the little car parking there is.
Okay.
So yeah, so that would be the process for changing the gears. And I think probably the main thing that is nice you noticed, and you might have known what I meant now, how you use, when you're changing down, how you use your brakes to slow.
Yeah.
But you know what I meant now, that basically when you go clutch down, you want to also make sure you ease off the brake.
Yeah.
Because I think, could you feel that it was about to stop suddenly?
Yeah.
So that's, you have to be careful. You want to use the brakes to slow, but be careful when your clutch goes down not to your right for your brake to follow it.
Right.
Because sometimes that can happen when you're new to driving. When your clutch goes down, your right foot will kind of copy, and they kind of go together, and then you end up stopping without meaning to stop.
Okay. Yeah.
But you noticed that well, that you could feel that's about to happen, and you did the right thing by thinking, oh, come off the brakes, I don't want to be stopping, I'm just trying to slow down and keep it rolling slowly.
Then gauge your speed off.
So it is a little bit more fiddly, the changing down gears, because there is that more foot movement and that sort of thing involved.
Okay.
Did you notice the engine noise telling you to change up gears, the engine revving louder and making more noise?
Well, if I'm being honest, I didn't really hear it. I was more paying attention to that.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And that's probably partly because the windows are open.
Yeah.
Probably partly as well because you're so busy focusing on, because it's all new to you.
Yeah.
Focusing on the pedals now, you might find things like your hearing in the engine might not be as efficient maybe as it would be in a few lessons and that sort of thing. I don't know if you would have then, bearing that in mind, I don't know if you noticed when we were slowing down, we used the brakes to slow in gear 2. Did you notice the engine making a bit of a noise?
I did, it was like a
I know something cool. Yeah, like a bit of a sort of a chugging noise is what some people call it.
Okay.
So that's the engine telling you, it's not a bad noise, it's the engine talking to you, saying that's telling you want to go clutch down and change down the gears.
Okay.
So revving, going whoo, is saying you change up gears. If it's going, that's saying clutch down and go down a gear.
Okay.
So the car talks to you and gives you noises to tell you what to do with the gears.
Right. Okay.
Any questions on that?
At the moment, no. I think that went pretty smoothly on my side.
Cool.
Yeah. I'm pretty happy with that one. Yeah.
So what? Yeah, sorry.
Sorry, I was just changing down the gears. I think I need to get used to it a bit more.
Yeah, there's a bit more foot movement involved, isn't there? So what we're going to do is, I think we're going to go into this bit here, because it's normally pretty empty in there, because it's like a little car park for the playing fields, and there's nothing in the playing fields at the moment. Okay. So I think we can maybe go in there and then turn the car around, because it's probably better to go in there rather than trying to turn the car around here, because it's a bit sort of much going on out here. Hi guys, I thought I'd just show you this book to add to your collection. The new Drivers Handbook. It's a 3-in-1 book, and it's got some pretty good reviews from a driving examiner and a driving instructor. It has over 800 practice theory test questions, common driving test faults, driving test general tips, and advice on dealing with nerves on the big day. Finally, it has tips for after you've passed your test, including vehicle maintenance and driving abroad. You can find a link to this book in the description below. Now, back to the video. Now, the thing to be careful, I don't know if you can see there's a raised curb there.
Yeah.
So when you go in here, you're going to have to sort of go out
And go back
wide and then back in, because if you turn in immediately, you'd clip the curb.
So would it be worthwhile to go back a bit?
You could practice, that's a fair point. That could make it give you a bit more space, couldn't it?
Yeah.
And that, I suppose, as well, could get you practicing a bit of reversing. So maybe that's a fair point, just to give yourself a bit more space to to manoeuvre. So should we go for that? So if you see if you remember where a reverse gear is, it's that. That's perfect. That's it.
Check the button. And then we're gonna prepare to move.
Yeah.
Hand on the handbrake.
And
check what
have
lines.
you got your biting point yet?
Oh no, I have not. Right, so.
Is it safe to go? Because that feels good there.
Yep.
Yeah.
No one to signal to, then just come off there.
That's it. And just go clutch down a bit. Just keep it really slow.
Okay.
And if you're looking at this left mirror, would you agree just to keep the wheels straight? You can probably see the curb there, just to keep the wheels straight.
Okay.
And that should be fine there, shouldn't it? If you just come to a stop there. So clutch and then brake. Good. And then we won't actually worry about the handbrake here because we're quite flat and we're going to be moving forwards.
Yeah.
We'll have a go at doing without the handbrake because it's pretty flat here.
Okay.
So let's move into gear 1. And then do you think this is giving you a bit more room just to kind of come out a bit before you steer in?
Definitely. Hopefully.
So, but again, it's going to be good practice of that clutch control, so you have time to manoeuvre and to steer in.
Just got to be careful of that bump there.
What a little the divot in the road.
Yeah.
There's like a indentation, isn't there, or whatever. But unfortunately, we have to go through that because there's no way to avoid that. Unfortunately, just a bit of a divot there.
Okay.
So yeah. So you go whenever you're happy at safe to. Because it should be able to come through. It shouldn't.
Ooh, it does roll a little.
So you can use the handbrake if you want. It's not. Is it not going to roll? And it's not to. It's up to you if you want to use the handbrake or not. Well, I'm quite surprised it rolled there, to be fair. That's it. Just go clutch down a bit. That's it. Just really keep sort of that massaging that clutch to control it. And then looking where you want to go, just so you know when you need to steer. That's good. And then what we're going to do, that's cool, that's really nice, is we're just going to sort of pull forwards and sort of stop behind the white and the green car. So obviously you're, if you know what I mean by behind them.
You want to go directly behind them, yeah?
Yeah, because then we're going to basically back up into the opening to turn around. So we're just going to go forward and just go behind them. You can go a bit further, I don't have to be close behind them, but basically sort of behind them roughly. That'd be fine, and just stopping there would be perfect. That's great. Basically, so we can then back up into that opening after the white car, so we can turn around.
Okay.
So what would be the next step then to do that? So
we can do it while the handbrake is off, yeah?
Yeah, that's it. And the main thing really is just make sure you have your foot brake on at the moment, like you have, so it's not going to move anywhere.
Okay. Then we're going to go into reverse.
That's it. And again, this bit is it's up to you if you want to use handbrake or not, because it's fairly flat. It shouldn't roll. Okay. But if it is rolling, and it feels a bit out of control, then certainly use the handbrake. Or if you want to use the handbrake, then you can if you want. Okay. But you'll probably find you won't necessarily need to use the handbrake because it's quite flat at the moment. Okay. Oh yeah, didn't roll that time at all.
Anyone coming into the car park? Nobody is coming into the car park at the moment. Okay.
Ooh. Let's get back on. And then when do you think you could steer? Yeah, I'd agree. And similar as before, when you feel that the car's kind of, if I said to you parallel to the white car, I hope that makes sense to you.
Yeah.
See if you can then straighten the wheels.
Okay.
See if you can practice that.
It's definitely sticking to the front road a bit. Ooh, dry steering.
Cool. That'll be fine just there. Just so you've got enough room to, because here we've got a bit more space to play with in front of us, of course. Yeah, that's very nice, and it's nice, and yeah, it actually drives it really nice and parallel to that car, so you've got it in a nice position now. Because that's almost the sort of basis of reversing into a parking space, isn't it, almost, what we've done there?
Yeah.
It's just, of course, not particularly aimed for any lines, but that's the essentially the basis of reversing into a space.
Okay.
So we're now going to move out from here, and then when we get to the exit here, we're going to turn right and go down that road to practice some more of the gear changes.
Okay.
How are you doing for time, by the way? Because we're sort of running out of time, but it'd be quite nice to go up and down there once more just to practice the gears.
Okay.
Would you mind if how would you feel if we were like 5 minutes late or something like that?
No, I've got
so I just feel it'd be quite nice just go up and down there just once more just to practice the gears.
Okay, yeah, no, that's completely fine.
So when it's safe to, what's going to be the next step to move out of here?
Well, I'm going to need to change it to gear 1.
Good.
Then it's preparing to move.
Set.
I don't need to put the handbrake on for this. I'm just going to check all the mirrors, make sure no one's coming out of anywhere. Oh, it's actually starting to roll.
Cool. Well, that's very beneficial because it rolled forwards,
yeah.
and we wanted it to go forwards. We can use that.
Okay.
So it's probably just the road's uneven with the stones, isn't it, really?
So I'll just give it a bit
And then just come nicely over to this side. That's it. Good control that clutch. And then when we come out here, what to see if you can do is come to a stop at the end.
Okay.
I don't know if you can see where the tarmac sort of changes colour, where the sort of new road starts, the sort of main, it's not really main, but the main road starts. So just see if you can try and come to a stop there. And that clutch needs to go fully down, good. Cool. And what's your visibility like at the moment? How well can you see?
It's very good there, it's not good there.
Cool. So what do you think we could do to improve our visibility?
Just edge forward slightly?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll do that. We'll edge forward slightly while looking. If when you're edging forward, if you can see you're happy it's safe, feel free to keep going. Don't feel like you have to stop again unless you're not sure or there's something you see.
Okay.
So this will be again good practice of a clutch control. So whenever you're happy, we'll edge forward slightly until we can see past this car.
It's clear to go.
Good. Cool. And now we're going to basically fully release that clutch and use the gas to build speed so we can practice these gears. So a little bit more gas. Because it's flat, we can do the gear change at this point. See, it prompts you there.
Yeah.
So if you cover clutch, have your hands on the gear stick, but don't move it yet. And you're going to go off gas, clutch fully down and into second. And then clutch gently up and just touching the gas. Cool, and that's changed, that's now in gear 2. And now we're going to go through the process for slowing back down and changing back down the gear. So you're just going to use your brakes to slow. So whenever you're ready there. So have your clutch covered, we'll use that in a second. So, a little bit more brake. Until we're listening for the engine, a little bit more brake. There, so clutch fully down. Into gear 1, easing off the brake, that's good. Into gear 1, and then gas, and clutch gently up. And now you're back into gear 1. It's always a bit hard to get the gear 1 smooth. Yeah. Gear 1's a bit of a fiddly gear, it's quite hard to get smooth. And now we're going to have a go at going back to gear 2.
Okay.
So,
it's telling me on the
did you want to have a go at doing it yourself? See what you can remember?
Okay, so that off the gas.
Good.
Onto the clutch.
That's it.
Two.
Perfect. And then that's great. And how about now having a go at slowing it down and then going back to gear 1 once it needs it? So we're going to use this. Some of that noise. That's going to ease off good. That's it. Perfect. And if you just cover brake for me for a moment, we're going to pull up on the right like we did before so we can turn round. Is it safe to move over to the right?
Yes.
Yeah, so we're going to gently pull over. Just start steering over now so you have time to then adjust your steering. And I'll just go clutch fully down here because you'll be stopping just in 2 seconds.
Okay.
And then just stop here will be fine. So brakes to stop. That's it. And just keep your feet still.
Okay.
We might as well stop here so we can then turn around. We don't have to sort of go back a bit before we can turn.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, and then we'll do this bit here. So it's going to be, yeah, that's it. And then you go for it whenever you're happy it's safe to. Do you think you can steer straight away?
No, dry steering.
When you start moving, sorry.
Oh,
but
yeah.
you are quite right not to steer when you're stationary. Do you reckon when it starts moving, do you think it'd be okay to steer?
Yeah, it looks
Yeah,
good.
because we're in a good position here, aren't we? So, six. Good. And then when you feel like it's sort of straight, then straight is good. And then I'd be tempted to go back a tiny bit more because if you look directly out the rear window you've got a bit more room and just because it's tighter in front of us, so we'll go back a tiny bit more to give us a bit more space to play with. That's it, that'll be fine just there. And then brakes to stop. That's it, 'cause it's got a slight slope here, isn't it? So it'll start rolling forward, so you're kind of gone back, then you'll roll back to where you started from. So we now then look to pull forwards to then go back that way. So we can then do a little thing for you as well, not a massive thing, but a lot of people ask when you come out of reverse gear, they say to me, do you need to press the button?
Yeah.
So the buttons basically just go into the gear. To come out of the gear, you don't need to press the button.
Okay.
Even though it works, it doesn't pressing it, but it's not needed. Just you can just your clutch is down, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you can just come out.
Okay.
And it'll work. The buttons just go in, but it doesn't need to be done to come out.
Right, I could see myself doing that all the time.
It's not a problem though. It
Okay.
still works.
Okay.
Just something interesting to know.
So then we'll put into gear 1. Just make sure no one's coming, probably edge forward a little bit.
Yeah. That's good. Now your clutch can be released now. Now you've moved forwards a bit. Cool. And then have a go then at building that speed. And when you feel like it needs it, have a go at doing that gear change. That's it. That's nice and smooth, that one. And we're going to keep going in gear 2 for the moment. Because I'm not going to get you to do a change down to gear 1 on this hill, because that's going to make it a bit tricky. We're going to wait till we get to a bit flat a bit. But have a go here though, when you're ready to, and you're happy to, have a go at slowing the speed, and when the car wants to lower it, starts to struggle, then have a go at going back to gear 1. That's better though. It's like I said, it's very tricky to get it perfectly smooth. And then we're going to just pull up on the left in a safe place along here. So, anyone to signal to?
Yes, there is a person.
Yeah, I think they're warnable towards us, isn't there? So that could benefit. Remember, trying to do it before you get to the drop curb bit. Just come a little bit closer in, you can just a touch. That's it, that's great. That's it.
Clutch down,
Good.
foot on the brake. And then handbrake up into neutral.
Cool. And then what could you cancel now as well?
Signal.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Cool. How was that though?
It felt a bit smoother. It's just I'm struggling with that slowing down, changing into gear 1. It's definitely hard.
Because there is more footwork to do.
Yeah.
It's also just gear 1 is generally a more fiddly gear.
Yeah. Okay.
Just 'cause it's a slowest moving gear. It's very good for getting you going, but it's quite a sensitive gear.
Yeah.
Like on the flip side, gear 5 is a very unsensitive gear. On gear 5, you could change into gear 5 and just literally do that with the clutch. It'll be perfectly smooth.
Right. Okay.
So basically, the higher gears are less sensitive. The lower gears are more sensitive.
Right.
It's like how at lower speeds pedals are more sensitive, but at higher speeds they're less sensitive. It's kind of,
Okay.
I suppose, sort of linked in some ways almost. Yeah, but that was nice though, because that you nice and smooth with braking and easing off the brake when you're going down to gear 1, so you didn't end up stopping unnecessarily or unexpectedly. And yeah, remembering the process for changing up and down the gears.
It's definitely when I'm slowing down, I feel like I'm braking too much and my mind's on braking, and then you have to bring in the clutch and then let go of the brake.
It's just a lot of footwork, isn't there, in that sort of thing. Because people do tend to find that changing up gears, that tends to click quicker than the slowing down process. Because slowing down, as well as the thing of slowing down, you'll probably be slowing down for a reason. So you're on more of a busy road. You'll be more also, your brain also might be more on what's happening in front of you because you're slowing down for a junction or someone crossing the road or something.
Okay.
But for changing up gears, if you're changing up gears, it's probably all clear ahead of you.
Yeah.
So you won't really be too busy thinking of what's in front of you. So yeah, changing down gears does tend to take a bit more practice because there's more involved. You'll probably be slowing down for a hazard, so you'll think about the hazard as well.
Yeah.
So any sort of questions at the moment?
At the moment, no. I'm quite happy with the pace it's going. It's nice. It's definitely different to what I expected doing this. Yeah.
Cool. And you say it's mainly like the sensitivity of the pedals and the coordination, I think you're meaning.
Between the gas and the brake, they're very extremely sensitive.
Cool.
The clutch I'm not finding as hard as it is explained to be, except when switching down the gears.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So did you want to just switch the engine off?
Okay.
And then what we're going to do, we're then going to swap over.
Okay.
And then take you back.
Okay, lovely.
So I'm just going to turn this off so you can say bye if you want to.
Bye guys.